Hey everybody, welcome back to Ceto. John Allison here, and I'm delighted to have a returning guest for us, Sharon Anderson. She's the CEO of Williamstown Bank, and you're still in West Virginia, is that right,
We're still
Sharon?
in West Virginia, yes. We have not moved.
Well, last time we chatted with you, we were amidst some banking turmoil, and there was a big news out of the West Coast with the SVB collapse. And you had written a post on LinkedIn that went viral, and it
Yeah.
was incredibly insightful. And I thought it was an amazing post. But that led us to chatting with you. And in that moment when we talked with you, something emerged that was very, very inspiring about your work in Williamstown, particularly at your bank. And that we learned of an initiative that you had going on called the Giving Cup. So I would like to give you a moment to introduce the Giving Cup to us and tell us what inspired this not-for-profit work within the ranks of the for-profit banking industry. Sharon, tell us a little bit about what's going on up there in West Virginia.
I mean, it's cold. That's what's going on right now. So it's probably a lot warmer down where you all are. But, goodness, it's a long story that's kind of been evolving for years. But really what happened was banking is changing. We realized that the banking landscape in our market was changing. It was becoming a lot more competitive. Digital banking has made people not need to come into the office or the physical locations as much anymore. And so it becomes harder to develop those one-on-one key relationships with those customers, really knowing their wants and their needs. And we started trying to figure out how to both differentiate ourselves in a very competitive market and remain viable in a very fast-changing banking landscape. And so I cannot take the credit for the Giving Cup being our original idea. There's another bank outside of Columbus, Ohio, Richwood Bank, that we borrowed the idea from. I guess you could say I had heard about it years ago at a conference, and the idea stuck with me that it was an ingenious idea. And so we had an opportunity in 2019 to purchase what was a Truist location that had closed. And as many of their locations across not just our area, but smaller rural areas, the larger banks are closing some of those more rural locations. So we had an opportunity to go into still Wood County, which is our home base, but a newer market for us on the south side, I guess you could say, of town. And we wanted to do something different. And we thought that this would be a great idea and a great opportunity to try out our version of the coffee shop that would be a donation-based coffee shop. And so what we did was we created the concept of the Giving Cup. Rather than buying your coffee, you make a donation to one of our now 6 nonprofit local beneficiaries. 100% of your donation goes to those beneficiaries, and we do check presentations. Those dollars don't sit on our books. They go straight to the benefit of our beneficiaries. And the idea is really twofold. First of all, how do we drive foot traffic in a changing environment where so many people can do everything from their phone? And also, how do we give back to our local community in a way that is consistent and ongoing and that can really have a lasting impact for some of these organizations that we're able to help? So we launched the Giving Cup, our first location, in February of 2020. As you all know, that was not a great time to be trying to encourage lobby traffic anywhere. Our lobby ended up closing actually about a month after we opened that first location. So it took a while for it to kind of get up and running, but we decided to get a little bit more creative. Okay, our lobby's not open. Well, because there's not a drive-through. You can't drive through like you would at a Starbucks. The idea is to get people to come in. So you have to come in and order your coffee, and that allows us to make conversation with you. So we started getting creative in the way of curbside banking, curbside coffee. We'll bring it to you. The coffee shop itself is in a layout that is a very open floor plan. It's designed to be more of a Apple store feel, maybe, where you come in and someone greets you, and we'll either walk you to the ITM or we'll walk you to the coffee shop. And we're able to kind of tear down literally that wall that is that teller line and that barrier sometimes to conversation. And it's for both customers and non-customers. So we have a lot of non-customers that'll come in and get their morning coffee. But what they don't realize is they're chatting with us each day, maybe about non-banking stuff. The moment they are looking for a loan or a moment they have a banking question, it just naturally comes up because they really haven't realized the fact that they've been building rapport, and we've been rebuilding rapport with them. That office finally got up and running and is doing well, and we opened our second location with the Giving Cup in August of 2023. So I'll apologize because that was a lot to give you all in one,
No, we're taking it
all
in.
in one breath.
Well, it sounds like this philanthropic initiative, which might feel counterintuitive, or like we said, mixing metaphors, profit and for-profit, really gave rise to you allowing to organically serve people who are coming in and then helping them in a very specific banking way, just
Right.
organically conversations coming up.
Right.
And so as you've launched this, you've matured into this, you've expanded this, can you give us some specific examples of direct impact this work has allowed you to have in your community or on your community?
Absolutely. Currently today, we have received over $63,000 in donations. So as that number increases, it becomes, I think, a telling number. Like, that's a lot of cups of coffee when you come in and you figure out that people can donate a larger amount. Maybe they want to donate $100. We give them points for drinks. So if someone comes in and donates $100, they get 50 drinks and they can use that over time. Or, that number goes down obviously for the donation. But the idea that within the short amount of time that we've been doing it, considering COVID and the shutdowns and all of that, to be already over 63,000, I think itself says a lot about the community's willingness to support the initiative and the idea of, here's a community bank, we're asking you to bank local, so we're going to make sure that the money you're giving us in the form of donations goes to local nonprofits. I know Chase isn't giving money in my area. Bank of America doesn't care about Wood County, West Virginia, and what's happening where we are. But some of the missions and the organizations that benefit from us and the Giving Cup are local, and what they do matters to our community. And I think there's two examples really of the six that I can give. We have two nonprofit organizations that serve a county, multi-county, area, and we did that so that they could benefit from the Giving Cup, and because they were not, they expanded beyond just the local of the fire departments and the schools that are the other beneficiaries. But one is North Star Child Advocacy Center, and they are a center. I didn't even know what a child advocacy center was until we got involved with them. And what they do is they take child victims of abuse, and it's often horrific abuse, and they are the ones that interview, rather than a police detective or CPS worker or social worker trying to interrogate a child. They create an environment that allows the child to share their account and their testimony of the abuse, and they only have to do it one time, so that then that testimony can be used. It's non-biased. It can be used in the courtroom. It can be used in proceedings, and it's kind of that first step of healing for that child and also the non-offending family members of that child. They became a beneficiary in April of 2023, and in that amount of time, they've received over $13,000 from the Giving Cup. This entity is not a state-funded organization. They're a nonprofit. They are funded mostly by grants and different ways of donations and such. And while we are trying to change that and get allowances in city budgets and county budgets for that and for the work that they do, especially in this environment now, a lot of those funding sources are going away. The grants are becoming harder to get. There's a lot more organizations, I guess you could say, with their hand out, asking and vying for these grants. And when you're talking about a nonprofit organization and every penny counts, this is money that they have the ability to use in whatever way they need. Now, they're not to use it for things such as payroll, stuff like that, but they are able to use it. Maybe they have an emergency IT cost, or maybe, some of these kids come into the center and they don't know when they've eaten last, and they use it to buy these kids food, or they buy them shoes because they don't have any clothes, and it frees up money that they have for their use to be able to do their job. And I feel like that when you hear what they do day in and day out, I couldn't do it. The stories of abuse that I was naive and didn't realize happened. I mean, over last year, they did over 600 interviews, and they serve a 5-county area. And the idea that the abuse is that prevalent and that it's that horrific in some cases, it allows you to sleep better at night knowing that we are helping support these missions. And, one of the things that the partnership, especially with North Star Child Advocacy Center allowed us to see it wasn't even just the financial benefit of what we were doing with the Giving Cup. It gave them another platform that they could share their message on. And I think being joined and or partnered with a bank gave their mission maybe validity, that people, hey, if Williamstown Bank is going to partner with them, it's a good organization, we can trust them. And they really give us the credit for their trajectory that has just grown leaps and bounds in the last couple years, and they feel that we were a large part of that. At the end of my time here at Williamstown Bank, whenever that is, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, I want to make sure that my legacy is one that we cared about the community in which we served. And to me, I think that that's the perfect example. And that's just one, and I could give many. We have another beneficiary that they serve children and adults in our area with developmental delays and disabilities, often a very overlooked demographic, something that is near and dear to me because I have a daughter with special needs, and we have used their program, their Birth to 3 programs, to help her walk and talk and things that we were told she wouldn't do. And again, they're a nonprofit and they're out there trying to do good for our community. They deserve whatever support they can get, and I would just much rather our dollars go to something like that that's tangible than, maybe some of these other things that money could be going to.
Well, it's absolutely clear that nonprofits have a place in our community. They do good work, and it's abundantly clear that the Giving Cup and your initiatives have really struck a chord within your community and some pretty serious efforts by nonprofits, and you've come alongside and support them. And it speaks well of your motive, your intent, not just as a banking leader, a CEO, but just the collective of your organization. I'm going to ask maybe a little indelicate question.
Okay.
I believe wholeheartedly that the motive behind this is pure. It's not some clandestine effort to build business or create revenue, a backdoor into revenue. But I think many banking leaders, our partners, credit union leaders who are listening to this might ask the question, you've done your good work, and you referenced the organic traffic that came that potentially leads to conversations about banking needs in a family or with an individual. Have you seen it impact your bottom line, as it were, in terms of building depositors and that type of thing?
I think that we have. And, this is such a tough environment to answer that question with the interest rates being what they were and, what came out of COVID with, here we have this surplus of deposits that we can just lend, and then all of a sudden rates change and wallop us in the face. And I think every bank is dealing with, inched margins and squeezed margins. And are my numbers where I want them right now? No. But they're not where I want them right now because of the Giving Cup. They're not where I want them because of one thing, and that's interest expense. But what it has done, though, is it has allowed us to, and, the idea of the Giving Cup, I'll be honest, there has to be a mutual benefit to it. It is, yes, a nonprofit in essence, in that it's donation-based and 100% of those donations go back to our community. But we also, to be a beneficiary, you have to have your accounts with us. You have to do business with us. But that's one of the requirements. We do ask that you help support us and that you also help raise awareness for the Giving Cup. And North Star does it absolutely, in a way that blows probably everybody else out of the water. The others do a fantastic job. But, so if we're out here talking and North Star's out here talking and it all comes back to Williamstown Bank, that helps our bottom line. And we've gotten people in our doors that we wouldn't have maybe gotten in our doors otherwise. We have, each of those offices have a conference room, for example, a small business, nonprofits. They use those conference rooms. We allow them to use it rent-free. The first time they use it, they get their drink free. But it brings people in and allows us to introduce ourselves. And once we explain the concept of the Giving Cup, we've actually had people move their accounts to us because they like what we're doing. So, there is a intention that we will benefit from it. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it to raise awareness and support for nonprofits in our area, but we are also trying to differentiate ourselves and remain viable in a very competitive banking space, and we feel like that helps us do it. So, I think you have to look at it in the fact that there has to be benefit somehow to the organization. There is an investment up front, and sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And I think where these offices are located, the footprint that it gives us, the draw that the Giving Cup has, absolutely, I see it more of a expansion of our marketing, really more than anything. And it's something that is unfamiliar to people in our area. And so when they're thinking about switching banks, I know banking is not something people think about all the time. And so at the point someone is ready to make a switch from another institution, you hope that either through what we're doing in the community or what they've heard with the Giving Cup or, our marketing, that we've raised enough brand awareness that we're top of mind. And, I think the concept of the Giving Cup has helped us do that because it's so different than what conventional means people have seen in the past. So I very much think that it is. Sometimes it's hard to draw a straight line on return on investment, especially for marketing and things like that. But there's no doubt that the success of these two locations has been increased by the fact that the Giving Cup is there.
Well, I think you touched on something that is a focus for brands, and many people, I think I could garner their affirmation on this, but when your brand has a sense of purpose, that brings longevity. And
Right.
people would think, well, your purpose is self-evident. You're a bank. It's about helping people manage their deposits, loans, and whatever. But fundamentally, it's about how you're strengthening your community. And you're taking an amazingly holistic and comprehensive approach to not only function in the for-profit world and the banking vertical, but also being very, very much a strong advocate in your community. I think you referenced one time, not only are you doing these amazing philanthropic work, but you represent something that's very unique as the banker in the community. I think last time we talked, you show up in events and people recognize who you are and they know the organization you're a part of. So that's good and bad, I'm sure. You get an earful at times and
It
affirmation.
keeps me out of trouble. I'll be, you got to be careful when you never know who's watching. But it's true. I mean, I've been in the grocery store before, and I have people that I have no idea who they are come up to me and they say that they love what we're doing and they love the idea of our coffee shop. They love our commercials, and my husband just kind of rolls his eyes like, okay, here she is. But,
He's just part of your entourage at that
yeah,
point, right?
yeah. I mean, he gets to go to galas and balls and all that, and I'm sure he loves it. But, when you have bankers in not just other communities, but even in our market, compliment you on what you're doing, you have to feel like you're doing something right. And I think every financial institution, especially community-based financial institutions, are really trying to find their footing and trying to figure out how do we move forward and how do we connect with people in a digital age where they don't even have to come inside. And how do we build those relationships? Because especially community banking is based on relationships. I'm fine with the fact that people know who I am. I think that says a lot about our message and what we're trying to get out. I know that, our team has bought into it and they support the efforts. And a lot of them are kind of in the same, hey, I saw you in a commercial, and, they too can't go anywhere. I think the more digital and the more sometimes disconnected people are able to be, we have to make bigger efforts to connect with that customer base, because I very much know what happens when the customers, those long-time loyal customers, what happens when they pass away. And it's the kids that are inheriting the money, or what happens when maybe some business is closed? What are you doing to pick up, more business? And I think as a community bank, I read a lot about mergers and acquisitions. And I think a lot of times what leads to those events are not trying to, you think you can bury your head in the sand and continue to do things the way you've always done it and think that you're going to be okay, where you're losing business maybe under your nose and you don't even realize it. And I think that for us as an industry, a community banking industry, to move forward, we have to make sure that we are those kind of economic backbones in our community, and that we are vocal about maybe what the large banks aren't doing right, and so that there's a difference. Because during the SVB crisis, everyone was quick to throw all banks, and you need to get your money out of the small banks because this is why, because the government won't bail out the smaller banks. And, my message was counter that. No, we don't do that type of behavior to begin with, that you even need to worry about it. And I think it just gives our community comfort. Hey, I know who this person is. Her office door is open. She's accessible. Her team is accessible. And they're doing things in the community with an intent to have lasting impact. We don't see this bank going away. And I think that, that's important in an age where I think daily you're reading about another acquisition or another merger. And I think it creates a level of comfort that, hey, we're here and it's not our intent to go anywhere. I mean, obviously, I don't have full control in that, but we're not burying our heads in the sand and just hoping that this new environment's going to go away and things are going to go back to the way they were 10, 15 years ago.
So I want to respect your time. We've got a few minutes left, but one of the things I feel to ask you is, what would you say to other financial institution leaders, boards? What would you offer them by way of how they could grow their own philanthropic initiatives and how they can make a lasting impact? What's your personal challenge to those that might listen to this and say, well, I don't know if that would be for us, or maybe there is a takeaway. What gauntlet would you lay down for them? I'm going to get you in trouble here.
Putting it in the way of a gauntlet, I wasn't expecting it that way. I think my challenge would be go for it. We so often in our lives are so afraid of failure that it keeps us from realizing maybe the potential that we really have. And I think that that's the biggest, bankers are not by nature risk takers. I mean, I guess we are in some sense, but, we're very measured and calculated in our risk. But I think that there is opportunity for banks out there who are willing to do something different. And the coffee shop open concept will not be for every bank. I can tell you that. It's a change in culture. It's a change in even those employees that work in those offices. They aren't just waiting for someone to come. They don't just open new accounts. They don't just run a teller window. They're cross-trained. They can do pretty much every aspect and even make a cup of coffee, make you a drink. And, we've really had to work hard, and we're still tweaking. I mean, we still have things that we're fixing and that we're trying to improve on ourselves. You can't just set it and forget it. It's an effort that is an ongoing effort, and it's a growth. You have to grow into it and mature into it, as you have, referenced. But I would just say, don't think that don't say no to something just because you're scared. And I think that those who can do it and are willing to put the time and effort and resources into doing it can be successful and will be successful and will bring something to their community that they don't currently have, and that will drive long-term relationships and therefore drive additional profitability. And I think that, you have to have buy-in, your team has to buy into it. And I think that that's sometimes maybe the hardest part, is trying to convince people that, just because we're putting these ITMs in, we're not getting rid of people. We're not, your job might change, but we're not, letting anybody go. Or just because we're doing a coffee shop doesn't mean we can't service the banking aspect of it too. So I would just say, my challenge would be to just don't be hampered by your own fear, and don't think that something isn't possible just because it's unconventional.
Yeah, I appreciate how certainly not the intent in chatting with you are we suggesting that every local community bank or FI has to have a coffee shop embedded in them.
No.
That's a vehicle you've chosen. It was an innovation for you. You, by your own words, admitted you saw it being successful in another community. So there's a lot of variables when a local financial institution's trying to decide where to put muscle behind their philanthropy. But I think you've really given us a clarion call to say, have courage, be innovative. You can speak empirically to the fact that it does correlate to good business practice, not only in the philanthropic sense, but just in the classic sense of how you serve your community as bankers and the depositors that you have. So, I mean, we're running out of time. I could keep you going forever, but
I'm good. I don't have anything else scheduled, so if we went over, that's fine.
So one of my, I don't, this is probably get me in trouble, but there's this great YouTube show out there called Hot Ones where they take these celebrities through this gauntlet, I'll use that word again, of eating hot wings. And while they're eating hot wings, they disarm them and they get very candid and, through their eyes watering or whatever. And these great interviews. Very novel approach. But one of the things when they conclude this an encounter with each other, the host and the celebrity who's eating the chicken wings that are so hot, I haven't made you eat chicken wings. But one of the things he says to his guest as he looks right at him, he said, "Thank you for being here. The next few moments are totally you. Tell us what you got going on. Tell us anything you'd like us to know." So Sharon, I didn't serve you hot wings today, but I put you in the hot seat. So, my closing question to you is, what would you like to share? Anything is open. It's open season about the future of the community banks and the role of philanthropy that they play in their success. That philanthropy plays in the banking success.
I mean, I think just me trying to say philanthropy is going to be a challenge. But anyway, I'll say it again. At the end of my career, whenever that is, I'm hoping it's 15, 20 years from now, not 5 or 10. But, I want to be able to retire from Williamstown Bank, it being Williamstown Bank. I've only ever worked here. I've been here 23 years. Started as a part-time receptionist in college and had opportunities given to me to help grow the bank and to be visible. And in fact, I was the one that we need someone to be the face of the bank. And I had no idea. I had no idea 20 years ago. But, since then, I believe that community banking has a wonderful future. I believe that people like to know where their money is, both from a banking perspective and when they donate, where it's going. And I think you see so much in the news about people mishandling charitable funds. And, do I really know that 100% of my donation is going to where they say it's going, or am I just putting it into a CEO's salary? And for us to be able to stand here and say 100%, we pay for the coffee, we pay for the everything needed, 100% of your donation absolutely goes to that beneficiary, and to see the impact that it's having. Again, if you're looking for a way to differentiate yourself in your community, I think philanthropy goes farther than anything, because the Chases, the Wells Fargos, the Bank of Americas, they're not sponsoring sports teams, and they're not sponsoring, elementary schools, and they're not partnering in education, and they're not giving money to local child advocacy centers or those working with disabilities. And, to see the impact of that in your community, I think is important. And I think it really goes right with what the mission of community banking is. So we as community bankers should be finding ways to be involved and be philanthropic in our communities, because that is the mission of community banks. Yes, we're here to give banking services and to help people manage their money, but also we're here to help support the very community that we serve.
Well, Sharon Anderson, Ceto is cheering you on. I'm personally cheering you
Thank
on.
you.
What a story, too. I know a little bit about you from our previous interview, but I know that you grew up in the bank. As you've stated, you've been there a long time. For 35 years old, it's amazing that you've been there as long as you have.
Like 35.
But
when I was 12, yeah. What a prodigy.
We are aligned, and as a entity that serves banks and the local financial institutions, we believe very much in the mission of supporting the communities. So I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your work. Continue to cheer you on. You're out there on LinkedIn if anybody wants to look you up, and your bank is there as well if they want to follow the narrative of your Giving Cup work, or if they've been inspired in some way, shape, or form by the personal work that you've done in the challenge. So we're grateful to you. Thank you so much, and I hope you stay warm for the rest of the winter up there in West Virginia. We're under snow conditions in Atlanta, which is a challenge for us, but thank you again, Sharon. It's been wonderful to have you. Have a great day.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.